Hi, I'm Jimmy Chang, and we're here to talk about statistical analysis and hypothesis testing. Now, hypothesis testing is an incredibly important part of statistical analysis. Without it, there probably may not be a statistics field. So let's talk about the 5 basic steps that make up hypothesis testing, and we'll go from there. Now, the first thing you want to consider is, oftentimes in hypothesis testing, you're going to have a null hypothesis. Now, this is one of those situations where you want to either accept or reject depending on the information that you're given. Now, besides a null hypothesis, you want to have an alternative hypothesis. This is one of those self-explanatory terms because it is a hypothesis that's alternative to the null hypothesis. After you've developed the hypotheses, you want to determine what your test statistic is. In other words, what kind of a test is appropriate. Now, there's 3 kinds. There's either the z-test, the t-test, or the f-test. Those 3 are the most common ones that you want to use. Now, you want to then establish the rejection or critical region. Now, the rejection region is simply the circumstances that you would reject the null hypothesis. And then number 5 is the conclusion. In other words, based on the information and data that you've collected, what can you determine about your study and hypothesis testing? Now, it can be 1 tail or 2 tails depending on what kind of data that you have to work with, but there's a couple of things to kind of keep in mind. You might commit one of 2 errors. There's a type 1 error where you reject the null hypothesis when it is true, or you may commit what's known as a type 2 error where you reject the alternative hypothesis when it is true. So no study is perfect, but you do have to allow the possibility of possibly committing those errors. So I'm Jimmy Chang, and that's a brief introduction on statistical analysis and hypothesis testing.